Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you, Harold, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chuck C., and I'm an alcoholic. I'm neither proud of it nor am I ashamed of it. That's just the way it is with me. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank you all for coming. You know, strange it might seem, I need you a lot more than you need me. I reckon the difference between a full and joyous life and one that's completely and totally barren is people. People make an awful lot of difference, and I happened to come to this fellowship when I was fresh out of people. I didn't have anybody left but me, and I couldn't stand me. And it's pretty wonderful to have people whom we love and who love us. Makes a great difference in our living experience. I'm on a little kick, and so those of you who've heard me recently will probably hear about the same thing. Because I was over not too long ago in the valley, and I gave one of my real top-notch talks. It was really one of the better efforts, you know? And when I got through, I ran into an old boy that was attending his first meeting, and he was pretty bad off. He had been not too far away from the bottle very long. And he said to me, he says, Chuck, that was a hell of a talk you gave, but how in the hell did you get sober? And so he sort of cooled me off. And I've been having a beginner's meeting ever since. That's what we're going to have tonight, I reckon. But before we get started, and this to me seems to have a little significance to people who are rather new, I'd like to spend just a few minutes on what some other people think of our program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, it isn't that we're concerned about what other people think about us, because we're not. We are concerned with only one thing. We have only one business. And that's to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. That's the only business we have. And inasmuch as we do this, and nothing else, people on the outside, I expect, will keep saying nice things about us. But if we get concerned in what they think, they'll probably pretty soon not think too much of us. But I think it does give us a little bit of a lift to know what others think. Recently, it was Mr. Chamberlain and my happy privilege to go to Canada, the province of Alberta, for their yearly meeting up there, their conference. And at the big meeting, at the banquet, we had the premier of the province of Alberta and his charming wife, and we had the mayor of the city of Edmonton and his wife, amongst other personages outside of our fellowship. And the mayor gave a little welcoming talk, and he talked some of this fellowship of ours, and it was obvious that he knew about it, that he hadn't just boned up for this particular occasion. And he had very high praise for us. And then the premier of the province got up, and he talked a little about us. And it was quite obvious that he knew and had known of us for a long time, and he gave us some very high praise indeed. Shortly after that, we were in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and the same process was repeated. We had the governor of the state of South Dakota and his charming wife, and the mayor of Aberdeen and his wife, and they too talked a little about this thing. And they knew about it, and they were very high in their praise of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Between those two trips, I'd been to Texas, to a state penitentiary. Not a state penitentiary, a federal penitentiary down there. And I'd listened to the warden a little bit, as I've listened to many wardens throughout the country. And they tell us that there hasn't been anything since the origin of penal institutions that has been of quite such great help to the management of penal institutions as the Society of Alcoholics Anonymous. Most of you, I'm sure, know that we have groups inside of nearly every maximum and minimum security prison in the country, and in most of the hospitals. And I thought that was very good. And a few years ago, none other than the great Herbert Hoover, in talking to the United Nations, stopped in the middle of a talk. And he made this little aside. He says, if the peoples of the world knew and lived by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, this talk of mine wouldn't even be necessary. And so you see, peoples on the outside think well of this society. And also, you might, those who are new, might be interested in who's in this leper colony. What constitutes the membership of Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, by and large, they're bums like me. That's the bulk of the membership, of course. But there are peoples here from every walk of life, from every strata of human life. We have members. You might say, well, certainly there would be no doctors. Medical men know too much to get involved in this thing. And yet we have lots of them. We have many doctors in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. You might also think, well, there certainly wouldn't be any bankers. They have ice water in their veins, and there's no room for alcohol. But we have lots of bankers in this outfit. Two of the greatest banking men that I have ever known or heard of in my time were members of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of them has gone to his reward, but the other's still active, members of this fellowship. And you might say, well, then certainly there would be no one from the clergy, no preachers or priests. They certainly wouldn't be victims of the disease of alcoholism. And yet the woods is just full of them. We got lots of them. And so every walk of life is represented here, because alcoholism is no respecter of persons. The high and the low, the learned and the ignorant, it don't make any difference. And you might like to know what the chances for success are. This is a good thing for a beginner to know. What chance have you to beat the rap? Well, for those who come of their own accord, seeking help, 50% don't have to take another drink from their very first meeting. I happen to fall in this category. From the very first meeting that I attended, it has not been necessary for me to take a drink. Thank God. 25% have trouble, but eventually get back and stay. So your chances for recovery are 75%. 25% go to the well once too often or don't get back and stay. So this is a pretty good chance. It's this good that in all other approaches to the problem put together, they only claim a little less than 6%. That's all other approaches put together. And in here you have 75% chance of recovery. And I think it's a good thing to know. For instance, if there's anyone here tonight who hasn't done so, who might decide that they want what we have and become willing to go to any length to get it, you can start a lifetime of sobriety right tonight, one day at a time. You don't have to take another drink after this first meeting if you can come to the decision that you'd rather be dead than drunk. Because you see, if you'd rather be dead than drunk, you neither have to die or get drunk. There is a miracle here. Now, if you should ask me, as this guy did in the meeting over there after I had made my great delivery, if you would ask me, how do I get sober? I might say to you, don't take that next drink. Just don't take the next drink. And you might say to me, but don't you know that I crave this stuff? And I might say, yes, I know. I know. And you might say, well, how about this spot in my throat? And I might say, yeah, it hurts, don't it? And it seems like the only thing that'll keep it from hurting is another drink. But that just postpones it. If you don't take that next drink, after a while, the hurt will go away. And you might say to me, but how about the shakes? And I say, go ahead and shake. Shake your liver out. Maybe you got it coming. But don't take the next drink. That too will pass. And you might say to me, well, how about sleeping? I can't sleep. And I say, yes, I know about that too. Stay awake. 1, 2, 3, 4 nights, depending on how long you were drunk. 4 nights and days to stay awake and sweat and freeze and shake and die. And you can go to sleep again if you don't take that next drink. It'll pass, so just don't sleep. Stay awake. And then you might say to me, well, how about tapering off? And I'd say it's a good stunt if you can do it. Go ahead. If you can do it, go ahead and do it. I never could. I tried to taper off. I tried to taper off on the stuff I was drinking. And I got just as drunk as when I was serious about it. I tried to taper off on beer. Get a case or two to taper off on. And I got just as drunk on that as on the stuff I was drinking. Not much difference, only that beer is a little bit wetter than the other. That's all. And I tried to taper off on wine, and brethren, there's something. I could walk around for 3 or 4 days about 3 feet off the sidewalk, never touch a thing, like a zombie. I like old Jack Turton's remark about wine. He says the only thing that he's ever known that'll hang a man without a rope. And that's what it does, all right. And I got just as drunk on wine as I did on the other, and a little bit sicker. So I couldn't taper off. If you can, it's all right, but I couldn't do it. The only way I know to sober up is not to take that next drink. And again, depending on how long you were drunk, any place from 3 to 7 days, and you can get physically sober. It's not too rough. But if you would say to me, how do I remain sober? How do I stay sober? I would say, this is a horse of a different color. This is an entirely different problem. If you happen to be an alcoholic, this cannot be done in 5 to 7 days or 3 to 7 days. This is a lifetime job. This is something we start on now and keep working on forever. And it is my opinion that there are only 2 classes of alcoholics that can remain sober. Just 2 classes. Because others will not fulfill the conditions for sobriety. There are the folks who have run out of everything at the same time. Those of us who have run out of people and time and money and health and sanity and liquor all at once. Now here's a good place to start. This is a real good place to start because it's pretty easy to fulfill the conditions of sobriety when there is nothing else to do. And the other class of alcoholics that can fulfill the conditions are those who can and do come to see the nature of their problem. I think this is absolutely necessary for an alcoholic who still has some time left to come to see the nature of our problem, or we will not fulfill the conditions for sobriety. We won't do it. We have to come to see that we're fighting a losing battle, that no alcoholic ever won the battle whilst drinking. We have to come to see that the only thing ahead of us is an alcoholic death, permanent insanity, or a way to live that does not include alcohol. These are the only 3 things that can happen to an alcoholic. And when we come to see this, we can get off of the merry-go-round any place from the first compulsive drink to the snake pit. And it is not necessary to go the last mile. But we must come to see the nature of our problem. Now, why can't I drink liquor? I can do pretty nearly anything else I want to do. Why can't I drink liquor? Because I'm an alcoholic. What is an alcoholic? An alcoholic is a person who suffers from the disease of alcoholism. The disease of alcoholism. Why didn't somebody tell me this? I recognized that I had a problem 10 years before Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went to lots of places for help. And nobody ever told me about the disease of alcoholism. And I didn't know about it until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous after everything else had gone by the boards. And I remain to find that alcoholism is the 3rd worst killer in the United States today, topped only by heart and cancer, second only to one of our social diseases as a cause for permanent insanity, and medically speaking, incurable. Now that's what I got. I am an alcoholic. It's very interesting, this disease of alcoholism, because doctors throughout this country, and some in Canada, have told me that it is their private opinion that if the brain explosions and heart failures that should be attributed to alcoholism were, alcoholism would be number one as a killer, tops, surpassing even heart and cancer as a killer. So it's a pretty rough deal. It's a pretty rough proposition. Probably the best definition we'll ever hear of the disease of alcoholism was given to us by a doctor, the late Dr. Silkworth of Town Hospital in New York. It said of Silky that he attended not less than 40 and probably over 50,000 alcoholics during his practicing lifetime, so he should have known what he was talking about. And this included our beloved Bill, one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, both before and after he sobered up. And Silkworth said it was a disease of a twofold nature: an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. An allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. The allergy of the body meaning simply this, that my body cannot successfully handle alcohol. I cannot oxidize it, burn it up, and get rid of it. When I take one slug of liquor, it stays with me, goes into the bloodstream, into the brain. It triggers some physical something in me that demands that I keep on drinking. And I have to keep pouring it in. Now, this is not true with over 90% of people who drink liquor. And this is something I didn't know. This is the thing that was the bane of my existence. Because everybody that I knew drank liquor. And most of them were much inferior to myself. They didn't have my body, and they didn't have my brain. Particularly, they were nearly as keen and smart as myself. And they could drink that flip, and it didn't bother them, and I couldn't drink it. And they'd tell me, Chuck, you can't drink, you got to quit. And it just galled my liver. I'd look at some pipsqueak, that wasn't even in it. Chuck, you can't drink, you got to quit. And I'd say to me, why can't I drink? And my answer to me was, you can, and you got to prove it. So I did it again. Now, I didn't know about this physical difference. But it's there. An allergy of the body. I cannot successfully drink liquor because my physical body won't take it. There are quite a few things that are real interesting to me about the physical side of the disease. Number one, nobody knows what's missing. There isn't an expert in the country, and there are doctors now that have spent 25 or 30 years studying the disease of alcoholism. And they don't know why I can't drink. They know I can't, but they don't know why. A lot of them think, and mind you, these are experts, a lot of them think that people like me were born with the physical inability to react normally to alcohol. That we were doomed to be alcoholic from birth if we drank liquor. And there's a lot of evidence along this line. Many, many amongst us go off the deep end from the first drink. Drink alcoholically from the very first drink. The other part of the half of the experts thinks that it's the damaging effect of the alcohol on the system that eventually causes us to lose our ability to react normally to alcohol. But one thing they're agreed upon: once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. This should be evidence enough, but it isn't for the likes of me. This should be evidence enough that there's no sense in messing with this stuff, because there isn't a case in medical history where anyone like me has ever gone back to social drinking, to trouble-free drinking. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And there isn't a case amongst us, and we're someplace between 250,000 and 500,000 strong. And there isn't a case amongst us where any one of us has ever been able to go back and drink normally again. And this is pretty good odds, isn't it? And yet it's funny, because, you know, we Alkies have a real great proclivity for hearing what we want to hear, and seeing what we want to see, and interpreting both that which we hear and see to suit ourselves. We can do that better than anybody. I was yakking down at Manhattan Beach about a year ago, and there was a very good-looking female school teacher there, 30-ish, very interesting gal, and she came up to me after the meeting when we were having a little coffee, and she said, "You know what I was thinking when you said we are 250 to 500,000 strong, and there is not one amongst us that has ever been able to go back and successfully drink liquor?" And I lied a little. I says, "No. What were you thinking?" She says, "I was thinking I am the one that is going to prove the rule. I'm going to do it." And that's the way with all of us. You see, we can hear it and see it, and it don't register. We're different. We're different. We think. But we're not, if we're alcoholic. We're not different from each other. We're different from normal drinkers, but not different from each other. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And another thing that's very interesting about it is that we don't get better when we're not drinking. And this fools a lot of us. This fools a lot of us. You know, when we get well physically, and when things get to going fairly good with us, and we got a little money and we got a good job, we sort of seem to forget. And particularly if we learn a little about the disease and about us, and it's pretty easy for us to say, "Well, I'm normal now. I've built me up some physical strength and a little mental capacity, and now it's going to be different. I can take a short beer." But see, this is wrong. There's no such thing as an alcoholic building up any good drinking time. We actually get physically less able to react normally to alcohol with the passage of time, even when we are not drinking at all, when we are totally dry. I am actually 13 years worse off, so far as successfully drinking liquor is concerned, than I was when I came to this fellowship. And my good wife is with me tonight, and you can ask her after the meeting what kind of shape I was in when I came here. It wasn't good. Over any considerable period of time, the physical part of the disease gets worse, never better. And lastly, it's incurable. There is no place that we could go, even if we had many millions of dollars, and buy a way to successfully drink liquor. There isn't such a thing. So what are we going to do about the physical part of the disease? We are going to accept the fact that that's the way it is with me, and there is nothing I can do about it now or ever. I cannot successfully drink liquor. We're going to accept it. And then turn to the other half of the disease, the obsessions of the mind that cause us to take the first drink. Now, the first drink is not physically caused. There is nothing in the body that demands liquor when there is no liquor in the body. I haven't had a drink for over 13 years, and there's nothing in me that wants a drink. My body isn't yelling for liquor. It's quite a while, too. It's a long time between drinks. But not long enough, I can tell you. The first drink is mental. The second drink and the 542nd drink are physical. But the first one is mental. This is why willpower, backbone, standing up and being a man have nothing to do with our approach to the disease of alcoholism. We don't even think about it. We look at this thing for what it is, an obsession of the mind that's greater than the willpower. So there's no sense in me deciding to quit drinking. I did that 5,000 times before I came to AA. I quit drinking more than, what's his name, quit smoking. Oh, Mark Twain, wasn't it? Says the easiest thing in the world, quit smoking. I've done it 1,000 times. Well, that's the way I quit drinking. I could quit, but easy, but I couldn't stay quit. Because the obsessions of the mind are greater than willpower. So our decision is not to quit drinking. Our decision is we can't quit, that we must have help. I love this obsessions of the mind business because I think it's a sugar-coated way of telling us that we're nutty as two fruitcakes. I think that's just sneaking up behind insanity, obsessions of the mind. We're nuts. A lot of us don't like that word, but I do. I thank God that I knew I was nuts before I got here. You didn't have to tell me that. I knew it. A lot of us think that we're talking about insanity while drunk, but we're not. Any alcoholic will admit very readily to being insane or doing insane things when he's drunk. But that isn't what the book's talking about. The book's talking about insanity between drunks that causes us to drink again. Insanity. I like it. It's very reasonable to me and very elementary to admit that I'm nuts. And incidentally, it's not so bad when you know it. The thing that makes insanity bad is when you don't think you are. But if you know it, you get along pretty well. It's sort of an asset. But supposing that we just look at this thing now. Say, take a guy like me, drank 25 years. A lot of things happen to you in 25 years. And you can look right straight at a 25-year record and say, this time it's going to be different. This is insanity. Now, supposing I took this little old maul here, and this is soft wood, very light, not very damaging at all. Hear that? Holla. But suppose I just stood here and did that for 5 minutes. You wouldn't even wait for the coffee break. You'd go home. You'd say, this guy's nuts. That second step is not doing him much good yet. He needs to do some more work on that. Long ways from being sane, and there's no use listening to him. Let's go home, and we'll have a little meeting at home. We can put on our own coffee. We don't have to stay here for this free coffee. We'll go home. And yet that don't hurt much. Just hurts in one place, right there. And it has nothing to recommend it compared to trying to sober up after you've been drunk, say, 30 days. Now, here's a hurt. Here is a hurt. Everything about you hurts. Your head hurts, your brain hurts, your chest hurts, your lungs hurt, your heart hurts. Every once in a while an arm goes off into space and you don't know what it's doing out there. You'll be lying flat on your back in bed and boom, the alcoholic cramps get you and you're 10 feet out on the floor. Your hair hurts. And everything all around you for 10 or 15 feet hurts, and hurts bad. And still you go back and do that over and over and over, not for a year, but for 10 years. Is that insanity or not? To me, it's that simple. That is insanity. And if an alcoholic wants to live without drinking, he must be rid of the insanity that will let him look at a record and say, this time it's going to be different. And what I mean, look at a record, I mean look at a record. And the record's the same with every alcoholic. And if the things I list haven't happened to you, don't be discouraged. They will. If you keep drinking. They happen to every alcoholic. If they keep going. And almost in the order named. And I always like to stop for a minute right here because a lot of people hear a monkey like me talk. And they say, well, these things haven't happened to me, therefore I am not an alcoholic. Oh, this is one of the worst mistakes we can make. You know whether you can drink well or whether you can't. You know whether liquor's causing you trouble. Nobody has to tell you. And I think the simplest thing on earth, the simplest little exercise to determine whether or not you're an alcoholic is just to say to yourself, is it necessary for me even to wonder whether I'm an alcoholic or not? And if it is necessary for you to wonder whether you're an alcoholic or not, sign up with the secretary before you leave tonight. In my whole 13 years in this fellowship, I have never caught one non-alcoholic wondering whether they're alcoholic or not. It's always an alkie trying to figure out that he's not, see? So, if these things haven't happened to you, please don't say, well, I'm not an alcoholic, because I have seen too many who have made that decision and gone out into the world and died without ever getting back. These are the things that happen to all of us, and happen just about in this order. First you get drunk, and then you stay drunk longer, and get drunker. And then you start having a little bit of trouble, just a little, around home, close, with your wife or your husband or your mother or somebody, your boss. And then your trouble starts spreading, and pretty soon it covers everything. You got trouble every place. And then you have a little trouble with time, you start losing it. They call it a blackout. First it's an hour or two, and then it's a day or two, and then it's a week or two, and finally you don't know what month you're living in. And then you start having a little trouble with animals. Some real natural-like animals and some very uncanny. Some very funny things that normal people don't know anything about, including snakes. And this thing tickled me a little because some psychiatrist now is trying to tell us that we can't dream in color. You know, I'd like to have that monkey with me on a few occasions. I was showing him Technicolor on a big screen. And then you start having a little trouble with music. You start hearing it, and, you know, there's no visible means of support. Banjos are playing, and there's no banjo players any place. This is one of the better things that go with it, because you hear lots of good music. It comes out of peculiar places. It comes out of the lights, and out of the heater, and out of the shower. Comes from every place, and a lot of it's good, but you can't turn it all. And then you start having a little trouble with people. You start meeting them and talking to them, and they talk to you, and they're not there. I suspect that this was the greatest hurdle my family had to get over. They could never understand it because we'd all be in the same living room together. Or were we? And I would have company, and they wouldn't have any, and they couldn't understand it at all. And then you start falling over on the floor on your face and chewing your tongue full of holes and babbling like an idiot, and they call that an alcoholic convulsion. And then you spread eagle, and you don't chew your tongue, and you don't babble, you turn blue, and if you're lucky, the oxygen squad gets there in time to wake you up. Now, all of these things had happened to me, time and time again, but the last one. I only turned blue once. But I got drunk after that, one time. And yet I could look right straight at this record and say, this time it's going to be different. I've analyzed my last drunk. I see where I made my mistakes, and I'm not going to do it anymore. This time it's going to be different. And, of course, it was. It was worse. It was worse. And so, again, we must be rid of this insanity. And according to my way of thinking, we got to have a little help. That's the reason we love this book so much. And if you happen to be new, and if you don't have this book, get it, beg it, borrow it, or steal it. Because this thing is the Word, as far as we're concerned, guys and gals like us. It's in here. This thing not only tells us about our problem, but it tells us that we lack the power. It tells us that we can't get out of this thing alone. It tells us we're like people who've lost their legs. We're never going to win. It tells us a good philosophy won't do it for us because all of us are philosophers in our own right. We're drunks. We're alcoholics. We're philosophers. We got the answers for everybody but us. And the book says that we all stopped, we looked at ourselves, and saw what a bad job we were doing at the business of living. And we decided to do better, says the book. But we lacked the power. Lack of power was our dilemma, and it was obvious that if we lacked the power, we had to find one. And it was just as obvious that it must be a power greater than ourselves. This I believe as I believe I am here. And it's very simple to me. Why do I believe it? Because I could not stay sober. Now, if I could have stayed sober, I would not believe it, and I would not be here. But I could not stay sober. And therefore I believe this. The book says that under certain conditions, certain circumstances, it seems there is only one defense against the first drink, the drink I must not take. And that is help from a power greater than ourselves. And I believe it. This is the reason I think that I love so much the 11th step of our program. The 11th step says we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us, and then these 7 words, and the power to carry that out. Where was this power when I was waking up in jail? Where was this power when I was lying in my bed without strength enough to lift my head off the pillow, and Mrs. C would have to come in and lift it up and put a little liquid in my mouth? Where was this power when I was lying in the floor, chewing my tongue full of holes and babbling in that ungodly manner? It certainly wasn't operating in me. I lacked the power. And so it is that I believe that the finest formula on the face of the earth for receiving this power is the 12 steps, the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And I do not believe that any individual, regardless of how far they went in the disease of alcoholism, can fulfill these conditions to the best of their ability and fail to receive the power. I don't think it's possible. I do not believe that there is any luck in this thing at all. I do not think that there's any special dispensation or special grants or withholding or granting. I think my business is to fulfill these conditions to the best of my ability today. And the miracle happens. The miracle happens. There is a miracle here. Now, I think that it's well for us to stick with our part of the miracle. I believe that the greatest single factor that causes trouble amongst us is that we get lost in the wrong half of the miracle. Some monkey like me says we need help from a power greater than ourselves, and we say, all right, I got to get it, and we start to try to bring this about. We're not miracle workers of ourselves. This is something I can't do. If I could have stayed sober, I wouldn't be here. So don't look for me to get you sober. I couldn't get me sober. The miracle is in the hands of some power greater than I am. And if we just get lost in our part of the miracle, this book says here are the steps we took. We're sober. Let's do these things. Let's get lost in this half of the miracle. This is my business, and the other is God's business. Let's don't get lost in the wrong half of the miracle. It's simple enough to just do these things. And this is another thing that makes me so glad I was insane when I got here. I love that business because I didn't have anything left to pick this program apart with. They told me, here are the steps we took. We're sober. And I had to be sober. And I took these things, and it says here, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And do you know what that meant to me? It meant we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's all. Nothing more. That's all it meant. And I'm pretty glad, because now I could pick this thing apart. I've been sober for 13 years. And I could look at this page 59 here, and I could say half of this page is black, and half of it's white. Now, if the black part has so much meaning in it, there must be some meat in this white thing here, too. And so I am going to read what's between these lines. I could get drunk right quick trying to figure out what's between the lines. And we do that, you know. We start wondering what the guy meant that wrote it. You know something? I don't give a damn what he meant. I'm not even interested. I'm interested in what it means to me. And again, it means just exactly what it says. And the next one, the same way. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore to sanity. That's all it means to me. And I'm awful glad that I had nothing left to pick this thing apart with, because by the time I had come back a little bit and could understand a little bit about this thing, I was already sober, and I didn't have to. And so I just kept doing it like I did it before. Fulfill the conditions for sobriety. And the miracle happens. What are the conditions? All of these 12 steps, every one of them. And I like every one of them, and I don't think they're much more important one than another. I like them the way they come. I like them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right down the line. That's the way I try to live them. That's the way I tried to work them as I came to the program. And I would like to talk about all of them. And I would also like to talk about all the 12 traditions, because that's part of my living program too. Those things are just as personal to me as the 12 steps. And some of them just as meaningful to me personally as the 12 steps. But if I talked about all 24 of them, there'd only be one condition that's difficult. There is just one difficult thing in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's the very first condition. And this is the reason that we must come to see the nature of our problem, or we're not going to do it. The very first condition is surrender, both physical and mental, to abandon ourselves completely to this simple program, in surrender. And this is the only difficult thing in the program. When we can and do this, every other condition here becomes something we want to do. And it is not difficult. The only thing that makes it difficult is our inability to surrender. And this is not difficult for the likes of me to understand, and this is the reason I cannot, and I dare not, judge anybody. This is the reason I cannot blame a living soul for not doing it. Because if I could have lived and not done it, I would not be here again. I say this to you. I could not surrender. I never surrendered once in 43 years of life. Not to God, man, woman, or the devil. I couldn't. It was bred out of me. I did not get these scars on me by agreeing with my adversary quickly, I'll tell you that. If there was an adversary, you eliminated him by liquidation or otherwise, and you didn't surrender. Surrender was for the weak. The strong man won his battle. And this kept me fighting this damn alcoholism for 10 years after I'd lost the battle. 10 long years after I'd lost, I kept fighting. And 2 years after everybody, including my wife, who was about the last one, had quit listening to me, I was still saying to me, I'll beat this thing if it's the last thing I ever do. Came that close to being the last thing I ever did, too. One of the paradoxes of the alcoholic nature is that we hate weakness. Now, every one of you in this room know what I mean. And the weaker we get, the more we hate weakness. And we don't like weakness in others, but we hate it in ourselves. And surrender's for the weak. So we're not going to do it. You see? This is a great paradox. And the weaker we get, the more we hate weakness. And it's like dirt. We hate dirt. And how dirty can you get? You know? When I'd come off of a bat, the first thing I'd do would be to get in that shower. And I'd stay there by the hour. Wash everything, hair and all. And then I'd get shaved. And then I'd run to the barber shop and get my ears set out. And then I'd put on the best clothes I had. We hate dirt. And how dirty can you get? And so it is with this weakness thing. And we think surrender's for the weak, and therefore we're not going to do it. And we won't do it until we see the nature of our problem. And yet I would rather be able to tell this one audience what it means to surrender than to be the president of the world. But it can't be done. If anybody could tell people what it means to surrender, everybody would do it tonight. Everybody. This is the most misunderstood experience in human life. There isn't anything from the cradle to the grave that can compare with the release in surrender. For instance, from the very moment that I recognized that I was licked, that I couldn't get out of this thing alone, that I had to have help, from that moment till this, I have never had to take another drink. And I suspect that it was at least 10 days after this event that I got well enough to go out and find my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. This happened to me in the middle of a drunk that had been going from the Friday before Christmas till the middle of January. And as soon as I had said to myself in this one little period of sanity, if I am ever able to get out of this bed, which I sorely doubted, I'm going to find Alcoholics Anonymous, then the curtain came down. And I was insane again, and I had to die and die and die and sweat and freeze and shake for days on end. But from that moment till this, it has never been necessary for me to take another drink. Is it any wonder that I think that the victory for the alcoholic is in surrender? Truly, this is a battle we win in surrender. This, perhaps, is the only possibility there is to walk as free men and women. That we might be rid of this Simon Legree, this ego that has beaten us to death over the years. Don't be afraid of this surrender. Don't be afraid of it. It's the open door to freedom. It truly is the very foundation under which our new life is built. I can't keep from saying this because to me it's so expressive. There was a great Catholic authority way back in the 12th or 13th century. In talking about this surrender, he says, you have heard that nature abhors a vacuum. He says, I tell you that God abhors a vacuum and cannot abide a vacuum any place under heaven, however small. He says, now all you got to do is to move out, get empty of self in surrender, and automatically you get full of God. Now maybe that's right and maybe it isn't. But this I know from the moment of surrender. My new life started. Don't be afraid of it. Secondly, the recognition of the need for help. And this is all that you and I need when we start. We do not need to understand a God or even to think there is one if we happen to come in here as atheists. And many, many of our people come as atheists, agnostics. All we need is the recognition that we have failed, that of ourselves we can't do it, that we need help from any place. From any place. And the rest will come. Just to see that we need help, the recognition of our need for help, is enough to start with. The rest will come. And finally, enough self-honesty to see ourselves as we are, and enough honesty to do something about it. Now, this means only one thing, and that is that the last excuse has to go with the boards. I have to laugh about this because I only had one excuse for my last 2 years, the drunkenest years I ever lived, and it was my mother-in-law. And they were the drunkenest years I ever lived. All the rest of my excuses had already gone. But I had this one left. And oh, what bad years they were. That last excuse has got to go. If an alky can pin this thing on anybody else or anything else, he is not going to fulfill the conditions. If it's still your mother-in-law's fault, you might as well go get it. We'll take a recess because you got it coming. That last excuse must go. And again, and most of you have heard this, but there are two guys here that I see that I haven't seen before. I was told this story from down in Texas, and I love it. It's about the two guys who met on the street, these two drunks. And one of them says the other, "How's things?" Oh, he says, "Not good." Well, he says, "That's bad." He says, "Not so bad, I got married." Well, he says, "That's good." He says, "Not so good, I got my mother-in-law too." Well, he says, "That's bad." He says, "Not so bad, she's got money." Well, he says, "That's good." He says, "Not so good, she wants to boss everything." Well, he says, "That's bad." He says, "Not so bad, she bought us a house." Well, he says, "That's good." He says, "Not so good, the house burned down." Well, he says, "That sure is bad." He says, "Not so bad, brother." He says, "She burned too." And so that last excuse has got to burn up. We must be able to see that it isn't the mother-in-law, it isn't the wife, it isn't the boss, it isn't circumstances and conditions. I am the monkey that can't live without drinking. If there be fault, it is mine. Honest enough to see ourselves as we are, and then honest enough to do something about it, namely, to practice these principles in all of our affairs one day at a time. Now, these are the conditions for sobriety. And each in his own way must fulfill these conditions. I cannot fulfill them for anybody else. The only person that can stay sober by my practice of these principles is me. And so if anyone here still harbors the idea that somebody can do this for him, I would rather you would remember this than anything else I say tonight. The only possibility for us to get sober and remain sober if we be alcoholics is to do these things ourselves, and then the miracle happens to us, the power is added, and we can live without drinking. Now, what do I mean by this? Why am I not drunk now? Tomorrow is a holiday in my plant. There's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. What a grand time. Why am I not drunk tonight? It's not normal for an alkie to be sober. It's normal for an alcoholic to be drunk. Why am I not drunk? Because something has happened in my life that is so much better than anything that I have ever known before, that my hair and my toenails thank God that I don't have to drink anymore. It's a state of being that is good. And I don't hurt inside anymore, and therefore I don't have to drink that stuff. A living answer. And this thing is so simple that we can't see it. It's so very simple that we can't see it. We look at it, and with these keen alcoholic brains of ours, we say it can't be this simple. There must be a tougher way, and I'm going to find it. I love to think of these keen alcoholic brains because we like to think of ourselves as being such keen brains. You know, lots of people tell us that we're a little above average. I should have been a quiz kid. Now, mind you, I was only 43 years old when I was lying in that bed of mine. I'd been there for a few weeks, drunk. And I was lying there in the early morning hours, flopping and sweating and freezing and dying and thinking about that big thing that I must do to get back in the stream of life. See, I hadn't done any little things for so long. I had to do a big one. And one of my great dreams was that I was lying there figuring out how I was going to save the Pope in an earthquake. Now, this was going to take some doing, because in the first place, I'm not even a Catholic, and maybe he wouldn't let me save him, I don't know. And in the second place, I was in Beverly Hills drunk, and I think he's in Rome. Mind you, I was only 43 years old, so I was real keen. A Christian. If I'd have been so keen, I reckon I wouldn't have had to come here, would I? But I'm pretty glad I came, because, you know, we're the luckiest people on the face of the earth. I don't believe there's a segment of society, a segment of humanity, any place that is lucky as the alcoholic. Why? Because we have an incurable disease. And because the thing is progressive. And it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes by. And because the time comes when we can no longer live with ourselves at all. And we have to have an answer. And because we come here, what for? To find God? No. To get the family back? No. To get health back? No. Get the job back? No. Peace of mind, serenity of purpose, never heard of the thing. We come here to find a way to live without drinking. That's all I wanted. That's all I hoped to get out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And people said to me, here are the steps we took. And they were sober, and I knew they had been drunks because they looked like me. Except in the eyes. They had something that I would have given my life for. And I wanted it. And I wanted it awful bad. And I started doing these simple things for sobriety. And as time went on, I woke up to the fact that I was sober. Later, I woke up to the fact that my other problems were disappearing one after another, just like the alcoholic problem. I didn't know when it left. It was gone 6 months before I woke up to the fact that it was gone. And so I woke up to the fact that Mrs. C wasn't pressing her divorce suit against me. And so I woke up to the fact that the kids weren't running from me. They were coming home now. And so it was I woke up to the fact that I was still down at the office there trying to clean up my desk. And later on I woke up to the fact that there was nothing in my household but love. We were living like a bunch of kittens. And again, later, I woke up to the fact that I was not only related to all of you, kinfolks, but also I was related to God the Father of life, God our Father. And it all came about just as naturally and easily as breathing. And all I did was try to practice these principles in all of my affairs one day at a time, to the best of my ability. Now, in closing, I want to tell you something. This is the only good life that I have ever known. This is the only easy life that has ever been mine. Even back in the days before I ever took a drink. And I believe that alcoholism is a living problem. I believe that back of the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind is a great spiritual unrest in the alcoholic. And I think that it's safe in saying this because the only answer that we can get and live without drinking is a great spiritual rest. So if the answer is spiritual rest, then the problem must be spiritual unrest. So it's a living problem, and we must have a living answer. And I believe that it is entirely unreal, that it is entirely not normal to live in left field, to be out in the far country. I don't think it is natural and normal to walk alone. I walked alone for 43 years. And that isn't normal, I'm sure. I don't think it's natural or normal to be away from home, away from the Father, away from the Father's house. I think it's normal for peoples to walk down the corridors of life together, sharing their experience, strength, and hope one with another, in love, with our arms around each other. This is normal. I think it's normal to live in the conscious awareness that God is our Father, that we are His children. I think it's perfectly normal for us to come to see that all of us are brothers and sisters, and that God is our Father. And this is an easy and a good and a satisfying living experience. And I am sure, because it happened this way to me, that when we fulfill these conditions daily, to the best of our ability, that pretty soon this becomes our normal bent. This becomes, after a while, our dedication. And once in a while, I think that maybe it's in sharing our experience, strength, and hope one with another that we come to know love. I never knew it till I got in here. I didn't choose to love a bunch of drunks. I had to, because they shared with me for nothing, for free. They shared with me. Strangers to me, and they shared with me. And I had to love them. And I didn't even know their names. But I loved them. And so we come to know about love. And they tell us that God is love. And I keep thinking lately of a couple of little scriptures that I knew as a kid. It seems that one of them was telling about the resurrection, the judgment day or something. And a lot of people were coming up to this judge, and they were trying to get in, I presume, to heaven. And he was telling most of them to go on, that he didn't know them. Go on about your business. And finally some monkey came up there, and the judge says to him, go on in. He says, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. I was sick and you visited me. And the guy said, oh, you must have me mixed up with somebody else. I never saw you before. And the fellow says to him, inasmuch as you did it to the least of these, you did it also unto me. And maybe my business is to share my experience, strength, and hope with the drunk who still suffers. And then I remember another little thing, and this gets more meaningful to me as the days go by. Because I spent 35 years going through the systems, trying to find the thing that found me in AA. I think it was about the last days that the carpenter was on earth, and he called his friend Peter to him. And he says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, yea, Lord. And he says, tend my sheep. And he asked him again, Peter, do you love me? And he says, yea, Lord. He says, tend my sheep. And the third time. And he said, tend my sheep. And I've come to think maybe it's in tending the sheep that we come to know the shepherd. Yes, there is a living answer here. This is a good life. Don't be afraid of it. Don't try to hold out a little here and a little there, because this is the fullness of life. And insofar as I am able to perceive, the only way that I can show my gratitude, the only way I know how to express my gratitude to the God of the miracle of AA and to the people of AA who showed me this way and led me back into life out of the experience of the living dead. I don't know any way to show my gratitude except to carry this message, to share with those who still suffer. And this is my dedication. This is my life. It's a good life. And I hope I live a long time, because I love to walk down the road with the likes of you. And I think it not strange to believe that every good and perfect gift is from the hand of our Father. And I think it not strange to ask and receive guidance in all the things that I do. And I think it not strange to share every good thing and every bad thing that happens to me. And I'm just like a little old knot-headed kid. When I do a lousy stunt, I like to take it into the closet and say, "Look, Dad, isn't this awful? Isn't this a terrible thing for a guy like me to do? I know better. And I even know why I did it. And I don't like it. And you don't like it. And I want to do better. And with your help, I'll do a lot better. Thank you a lot." And when the good thing happens, and this is one of them, to be able to be with you people here tonight. This is one of the great things in life to me. When these good things happen, I take them in the closet too, and I say, "Look here. Look, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this a great thing that happened today? It can't happen to a bum like me, but it did, and I know where it came from, and I sure thank you." And I just walk along like that, with the God that I found in Alcoholics Anonymous, with the people who taught me that there was a God. There was such a thing as love, and there was such a thing as life and joy and hope and fulfillment. It's all here, and it's all free for the doing. May God bless you as you walk up these 12 steps. The journey of life, the journey that is everlasting, because there's no roof, because these 12 steps lead from hell clear up to heaven. God bless you all. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.